Hello, hello. Welcome to a new episode of Convert on Shopify. My name is Pancho Mendiola, and today I have another treat for you. Great episode, great conversation. So I had another run with Slobodan. So this guy, believe me, he's a true expert. He's been doing this for quite a while now, more than 10 years in the whole CRO universe, but now he's really focused on web performance, and you'll be able to tell in this in this episode. He explains stuff in a very simple way for us to understand. That's the way that you can tell that he knows his stuff. They say that if you want to make sure that you know your stuff, you have to be able to explain it to a little kid or your grandma in this case, and he actually did it for me. This is great information. Believe me, you have to take out your pen and paper, because there's a lot of useful information about web performance, where to focus at, some key metrics that you can measure, and obviously some great tools that you can also use in order to increase your web performance and obviously optimize and continuously optimize your website. So let's go at it. Hey man, so you're back. You're back.
I'm back.
Sooner
I'm back.
sooner
Yes.
than we expected. So thank you very much for
Thank you for
that.
having me. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Nice to talk to you
Awesome.
again.
Awesome. Okay, so all right, for this one, I think we're going a little more into what actually like triggers you, and you enjoy everything about this topic. I can tell. So let's just dive into it. So the first question is, why should we care about performance?
Yeah. Uh, Web performance, like that's my bread and butter,
Of
meat and
course.
potatoes. Like whatever
Yeah.
you want. Like it's really, it gets me going when it's good and when
Yeah.
it's bad in
Yeah.
different ways, obviously. So why you should care about performance? When you're trying to sell performance to clients, it's really an afterthought for most of them. We have a website, it works. Maybe it's
Yeah.
not fast, but it works. But even with that, there are reasons why you should be aiming for a website that performs as well as possible. And I'll give you three reasons now, three different reasons that I think actually have a lot in common. Actually, even though they're completely different. So number one is for your human users. You want the website to load as quickly as possible, and not only as quickly as possible, but you want it to be interactive while it's loading. You don't want it to jump around while it's loading. All the things that Google scared us into with Core Web Vitals. They did a really good job at quantifying the loading experience of a page through Core Web Vitals, and that's what the users are actually experiencing as they're loading the page and interacting with the page as it's loading. So that's number one. You want it to be good and fast for your human users, because
we
let's say
tend
you
to
are
forget, right? We tend to forget that
yeah.
like we look at data, we look at users, visit sessions, and we tend to forget that in the other side of the screen there's an actual human.
That's the thing, and you could be looking at conversion rate in Google Analytics, whatever tool you're using, and you see that the line is here,
Yeah.
and you don't know that there's this weight dragging it down, even if it's just by 0.5% or whatever it is, and that's the weight of a slow loading web page. So unless you're fixing all of that, and unless you're really focusing on making the page experience as pleasant as possible for the user, it could be affecting your conversions, it could be affecting your hosting bill, it could be affecting a ton of different things that you normally don't think about when you think about performance. This is not just about, and I hate, there's this silly example that I really hate from several years ago. 0.7 seconds or 1 second will kill 7% of your conversion rate. That's BS, because maybe that was like that for one website at one point in time,
Okay.
but it's guaranteed to harm you.
Yes.
It's dangerous to throw around numbers like that, because that's what Amazon measured in 2015. Like, the world is different and no one else is Amazon, but it's guaranteed to slow you down. I know people who have done experiments like that on purpose, just adding a delay of zero point 0.5 seconds to page load, and every time you try that, you get worse results when you're looking at conversions and revenue. So number one, people don't like bad experiences online. Like that's really as simple as it gets. And now we have Core Web Vitals, who sort of quantified the user experience of a loading web page. And I think Will Ferrell said one thing, and that's just, like, he's a great comedian. I love a
Yeah.
few of his movies, but the best quote he had is, never marry someone until you see them on a slow internet connection. And that really applies. No, but because that's where you see the worst of people.
Of
And
course.
if you want to frustrate your users, and another thing is, maybe it's fast for you on your fancy 4G and a new MacBook Pro. Your users could be using a slow device, slow connection. So, you need to optimize your website for the users you have. And that's where it starts, that's where it ends. Like it's really, really essential. The second thing, and what I really love, is how CRO and technical SEO are kind of merging, because I've been calling technical SEO CRO for Google, essentially, because you're pimping the page, you're optimizing the page so Googlebot can convert or crawl it in a more efficient way. And it all collides through page speed and through faster loading pages, because Googlebot, or it's not just one machine, it's god knows how many machines they have that are crawling the internet all the time and every day. It doesn't have all the time in the world for every single page or every single website. So you have what is called a crawl budget, and then Google will spend every day a certain amount of time crawling your web pages. If they load slowly, it's not going to crawl them as frequently, it's not going to load all of your pages, it's going to take a while for your new pages to show in the index. So it's really dangerous. Like if you're constantly updating content and your pages are slow, that is a really dangerous thing. You could be wasting all of the effort that you're putting into the new content and your new website. So technical SEO and Googlebot, because Google dominates the search market, is the second reason why everyone should really care about performance, especially if you rely on Google traffic. The third one, and sadly no one cares about this, most people don't care about this, is the environmental impact of slow and bloated websites. And on my podcast, No Hacks Marketing, recently I talked to Marcus and Katerina from Right. It's the user experience platform, and we talked about just about this, the carbon footprint and impact of bloated websites. And man, the carbon footprint of gadgets, internet, and all the supporting devices is equal to airline industry. And
Really?
that is scary. That's
That's
scary. That's
super
so bad.
scary.
Like it's unreal, and it's set to double by 2025, I think. So, next time people call out Leonardo DiCaprio for flying private jets, maybe call him out for using a computer. Like it's just bad. It's terrible. Like it's really, really bad. And to put a number on that, it's 3.7% of all global greenhouse emissions that are caused by gadgets, internet, and supporting systems. Like that is unreal. And I mentioned Katarina and Marcus from Right, and Right has a carbon neutral program where you can go. They run an assessment of your website, what the footprint is, and then you can basically you pay for trees to be planted, so your website carbon footprint can be offset, and you're carbon neutral. And I recommend everyone to at least start thinking about this. So those are the
That's
three, really:
I
humans,
love that. Yeah,
cost,
we don't
and
think about
environment.
that. We think that because it's all digital. I also say that for like like trash content. Like yeah, I mean, you think
Yeah,
it doesn't pollute, but it does. I think it does.
man.
So, but this
Every
is
TikTok video that has a million or billion views is killing pandas. Let me tell you that.
that's I mean that's scary information. But yeah, we definitely have to take into account.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's that. I mean, if those three reasons are not enough for someone to at least consider making their website, I'm not gonna say just faster, but more efficient, I think
Of
is a
course.
more proper term.
Yeah, more clear information, like bullets, and
Exactly.
making it just super easier for
That
for
too,
the
that too,
user.
exactly. But also, like, it's easy to add a third party script because
Of
it
course.
helps you do something. Like when you add one, you add two, you add five, you add 10. The impact of that is horrific, and that's why we, as people who build and maintain and manage websites, we need to be very careful about just slapping stuff on the website, because there's a cost. You don't see it, but there's a cost to everything. It's either going to make you slower, or it's going to be a connection that fails and then the entire page is not going to load, or the environmental impact of that stupid pixel that you're not even sure you need it, but
Yeah.
it's easy to copy paste, and that's why everyone does it. So we just need to be more conscious about what we put on our websites. I think that's the first step towards performance.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. How did like web performance and measuring stuff came about?
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about the background, the
Yeah,
history of
yeah,
it?
yeah, absolutely. So one big major event that changed how everyone thinks about performance and put it on the map for a lot of people is announcement of Core Web Vitals. That was in 2020 that was announced. It was rolled out in 2021. But before that, way before that, we didn't have the fancy metrics to measure the user experience of a slow page. So the metrics we had: how big is the page, what is the page weight, like total weight of the page, how many requests it makes, like things like that, how many images, how many JavaScript files. And that's good, but that doesn't really tell you much, because let's say you have a page that's 4 MB. What does that tell you? I
Yeah.
mean, maybe there's something. Maybe it's a product page with a lot of images that have to be high quality. If it's a blog post that doesn't have anything, but you have a stock photo because you're supposed to put a post thumbnail, then it's dumb to have a 4 MB page. But sometimes those metrics really don't give you a baseline. You don't know if you're doing well or not when you look at page weight and number of requests. You should go for as low as possible, of course. So with the announcement of Core Web Vitals, it's that's my favorite Google thing that they ever did, really, because it put performance into the minds of people. They announced 3 metrics that are supposed to measure the experience of loading a page, really. And those are page level metrics. They don't apply to entire site. It's for every page individually. So but I'll just repeat them because we'll be talking about them. It's largest contentful paint, first input delay, and cumulative layout shift. Those three are set to measure the loading speed of a website, how quickly the content appears. That's the LCP, largest contentful paint. First input delay, how interactive the page is while it's loading. So let's say you click and it's not responding because it's doing something else.
Yeah,
And
it
the
has
third
to
one,
load
cumulative
like
layout
completely
shift.
until it allows you to actually click on
Yeah,
the button,
and
right?
that is annoying on mobile,
Yeah.
especially when you're like tapping, tapping, tapping,
Yeah,
tapping, and nothing's happening. And then the third one, the layout shift, cumulative layout shift, is the page jumpy while it's loading? When
okay.
something a new element appears, pushes everything down, and you wanted to click something, but you click something else by mistake because of that. That's annoying. And those three metrics are really good at measuring the experience of a page, the experience of a page load, to be more precise. So that said, the best thing about Core Web Vitals, in my opinion, and I think everyone should care, they're in Google Search Console. It's easy to see the reports. The best thing about them is that they force people to think about performance. Maybe for the first time ever, for majority of website owners, you're forced to think about performance. And they're now even a ranking signal. So if your website is slow or not your pages are slow or not interactive while they're loading, or the layout is not stable, you're going to get punished. And it's not a huge ranking signal. It's not a very strong signal now, maybe in the future, but still it's a signal. So it's a way to win by just making your website fast and more efficient. Another thing I want to add about Core Web Vitals is, if you're just optimizing for Core Web Vitals and don't care about anything else, just to trick those 3 metrics, because you definitely can do that. It's wrong, in my opinion, because that's like a doctor tells you you need to fix your diet and be healthy, and then you say, okay, when I hit 75 kilos, I'll be healthy. No, no, that's not the point. Like, the point is to have good habits and to live a healthy life and to feel good. And the same way, you're supposed to optimize the page, the performance of a page, so it loads well, so it doesn't have any unnecessary junk in it and all that. Core Web Vitals will follow. Like, they're supposed to follow all the work you've done. You're not just supposed to trick Google into, passing Core Web Vitals in your search console, because you're missing the point then.
It's not sustainable like for the long run. I mean,
That
people
that
have been
too.
trying
Yeah.
to trick Google all the time. For example, I don't know if you
Oh,
remember, but like before with keywords, that you would just like
oh
hide
yeah.
keywords within the site, and it wasn't in text or
Cloaking. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but that doesn't work
That was
anymore.
bad.
So yeah, now you have to go and do it right. So why don't you do it right from the start?
And that's kind of the point. That's kind of that's the next thing I wanted to talk about. You're supposed to approach performance in a way that it's not the outcome. That's the mindset. Your mindset
Yeah.
should be about performance. So I mean, tell me, how many times have you seen that happen? This happen? someone builds a website, an agency builds a website, and you work with website owners, right?
Yes,
That's your career.
of
You
course.
optimize websites, and they come to you, and we built this website, and 2 months later we notice it was slow. Man, that's not when you're supposed to look. You're supposed to check if it's slow while it's being built, because now we need to tear down this wall and that wall and that wall and rebuild it, and it's going to cost a lot more money. But if you're building it with performance as really the central feature of a website, I think there's no other way to approach performance. I'm a bit of a purist. I remove everything from a website that is not necessary, my websites at least. But I think that's how everyone should look at it. Like, you're not supposed to build a website and then realize, oh, users are complaining that it's slow. If you're not looking at it from, before it's released, when you have on a staging site, when you have it, like, as soon as you can reach the website, like load the website, you're supposed to check speed. It's not supposed to be an afterthought, really, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. And like what are some, can you give some examples? I think we tend to think that optimization is always like adding and changing stuff, but I think it's more of like getting rid of stuff. And
Oh yeah,
so
100%.
yeah, so like can you give us some examples of like major things that you always tend to remove from
Okay,
websites?
I'm gonna say almost always.
Yeah, almost always, yes.
Here's the one that gets me going every time. And I've been primarily speeding up websites for the last 18 months, but I've been doing that for 10 years,
Yeah.
maybe, before Core Web Vitals and everything else. When you go to a website and you see they have Hotjar and Google Optimize in every single page,
Okay.
and there's no way they're doing something with those two in every single page. But in Google Tag Manager, there's a trigger called page view, and if you use that, it's going to load it in every page. The whole point of Google Optimize is that it's going to hide the content for, let's say, a second, so it eliminates the flicker of the content. If you have that in every single page, you're artificially adding a delay just
Okay.
because you didn't want to set up your trigger. Same thing with Hotjar. Hotjar is a resource, front end resource heavy, extremely heavy script. That's just how it is. I'm not bashing Hotjar. That's how it works, and there's no other way to make it work. There's no way you need it in every page. There's no way you need it for every single user. Maybe you can run it on a sample of your users, maybe like 1 in 10 or 1 in 100 users, depending on your traffic. But the easy way is to just slap that on every page of the website, load it for every user, and you have yourself a disaster that way. So that's really, I'm going to say almost always, because almost every website I've worked with has some third party script that doesn't need to be in every single page. Like that's, to me, that is the worst offender.
Like you said, it doesn't make sense to do it in every single, like every time they click, they're they're gonna
Yeah,
be hit with all at least one second in load time, right?
it just makes no sense. Like,
Yeah.
one example I used to give the clients all the time, like, when you're going hiking, and we mentioned hiking as we were talking before this episode. When you go hiking, and let's say it's a dangerous hike, you can't take stuff that you may need. Like, you
Yeah.
can't take your Nintendo Wii on a dangerous hike. Same thing with third party scripts. If you're not sure you're using them or you need them, Shopify apps, WordPress plugins, whatever it is, you need to know this has a purpose in this page, and then you can load it. Same thing with images. Like, people load 2 megabyte background image in the footer. Why? That cannot even be lazy loaded because it's a background image. Like, why would you do that? No one's going to scroll that far, and no one's going to care if you have a blurred background image in the footer. So everything has to be, and that's really my approach to performance optimization. Number one, remove the junk that you don't need. Like, that is, if you don't do that, you don't need to do anything. Like, you're going to fail. Number one, you need to remove all the junk that doesn't need to be there, and that is on a page or template level. So, product page, category page, you need to analyze and see, do I need that script? Do I need this CSS file? Do I need this and that? Number two, when you really have cleaned up everything, you need to get in and optimize the way those assets are delivered to the user. What's loaded first, what's preloaded, what's loaded later, what's deferred or delayed, basically, in the page. So you make sure that the important content is loaded early. But if you don't remove the junk that doesn't need to be there, you're not going to have a very fast page. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and it's like we tend, I mean, our brains are, I think, wired still like into the physical world, and you use this analogy with the hiking. You can actually summon digital stuff on the go if you need it, but if you don't, like, why do you carry it? It's
Yeah.
like, it doesn't make sense.
Just because we don't see it, it doesn't mean it doesn't have a cost.
Of
And that's
course.
like the environmental impact. If nothing else, the environmental impact is going to be horrible because it's
Awesome.
just downloading the asset, processing it on the user device. That all uses power, like uses electricity, and it's just irresponsible to do it that way.
All right. So
Yeah.
I know that you have been working on a project to help it speed websites specifically for Shopify users. Well, not specifically, but you do offer that, and I think that's especially important because Shopify users, we tend to think that we can't do anything. I mean, that everything, it's like you have to just like, there's no way to focus on performance or improve performance because we think that we can't touch everything in Shopify. So tell us a bit about this project.
Right. To some extent, that is true. Like with Shopify, you can control the theme. I guess you can do
Yes.
whatever you want with the theme. But with the apps, the third party apps, whatever they decide to do, you're going to have to live with it. So
Yeah.
the project is called Perfbot. And I need to spell it because people tend to get it wrong. It's Perfbud. So you go to that.com, Perfbud, perfbot.com, and you can get more details there. But let me tell you about how it works. So my background, like my distant background, is in WordPress. With WordPress, you can access the server, you can access anything you want. It's open source. You can tweak it and manipulate it any way you want. Like there's no thing like Shopify apps with WordPress. So
Yeah.
it's kind of easier to optimize WordPress if you know what you're doing, of course. And you don't need a you do need a tool like this to get better results, but it's not necessary. With Shopify, you don't have access to the server. You have access to your theme, and like that's a weird web editor. Like you go in and type in your browser, and then with the apps, you're completely stuck. So the way we built this tool, which is in early access now, and we're seeing incredible results with performance and later with search impressions and search clicks because Google seems to really care about this. The way it works is we put a layer. It's located in a layer that is between the website and the user. So when the user requests a page from your website, from your Shopify website, what is returned is an HTML document that generated by Shopify. It's returned to the user. Our performance platform sits between the user and Shopify, and we clean up the page that's returned by Shopify at that level. So if, let's say, you have an app that has messy code, it's returning messy code and loading some assets that don't need to be there in every single page, we can remove that asset in specific pages. We can change how it's loaded. We can cache it so it doesn't have to be loaded from some weird server wherever they're hosting it that has a slow connection. So we do all that. Basically, what we do, it's kind of a filter, performance
Okay.
filter, to call it that way, that protects the user and cleans up the page, makes it leaner, and reorganizes the way the assets are loaded in the page. Also works with the images, optimize the images, all that stuff. So it's really the way we treat it is a page is returned to us, and we have our set of functions that are written for every website individually, and those functions clean up the page, the HTML page that is returned by Shopify, Webflow, WordPress, whatever it is.
Awesome. Awesome. So, okay, let me try to sum it up to see if I understand. Basically, Shopify, we all know that you can make some changes, and the Shopify language that they use, it's called Liquid, which is kind of a version of HTML. When the user clicks on something, they'll get loaded an HTML version of that page, right? So they can actually browse it.
Right.
And Perfbot sits right in between and makes sure that when the signal triggers from Shopify and convert it to an actual HTML readable by a browser, you are in the middle, kind of like cleaning it up and reorganizing stuff. That's what you do.
Exactly. It's the thing they have in the in airports where you cannot take the metal things
Yeah.
with you, a security check.
Yeah.
just like that. Like
Okay.
we tell the page, hey, you cannot take that with you. You don't need it here, and we just remove the assets wherever they don't need to be loaded. So that's how it is.
That's awesome.
It's a
That's
filter.
awesome. All
It's a
right.
performance filter. Yep.
That sounds amazing. So it's perfbud.com. We're still gonna
Exactly.
add the website and all the information in the episode description. And well, that wraps it, man. Thank you very much as well. I think this is very, very valuable information, and especially stuff that we can actually get working on to improve our websites.
Thank you. Pleasure to be on the podcast.
Thank you, man. And hopefully see you again in some other next one. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Well, there you have it. Was I lying? I wasn't. This was a really, really good episode, and I really enjoyed it. I hope you did as well. Don't forget that for more resources on CRO and everything about testing and all that you want, you can find it in Convert.com. We have a huge, huge amount of content in our blog, in webinars, in video formats, however you want to consume your content or your educational content. So head out to Convert.com and you will find a lot more stuff there. And also don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share if you think that this information is valuable for other people, your friends, your peers, your coworkers, whatever. Help us share, help us spread the word. And again, find us at Convert.com if you have any questions or comments or whatever. If you want, also if you know someone that wants to jump in, give us some information about what they do in this podcast, don't feel free to reach out. And see you in the next one. Bye bye.